Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and this is our special segment, Parable Fridays, where every 2 Fridays we explore a parable of Jesus through the lens of Spiritism. In fact, this is our second to last Parable Fridays of the year, as we have reached our goal of doing 6 months of parables in this podcast. And we will find today's parable in Luke chapter 16. It's the parable of the shrewd manager or unjust steward, unfaithful steward, however we want to call it. There was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward." Then the steward said within himself, "What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses." So he called every one of his master's debtors to him, and said to the first, "How much do you owe my master?" And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, "Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" So he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, "Take your bill and write 80. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much." At first glance, the lesson of this parable may seem puzzling, but Spiritism helps us understand its depth. And I think the first thing we can talk about is, why did Jesus praise a dishonest administrator? Jesus does not praise dishonesty. He praises prudence, the ability to think ahead, to strategize, and to act with foresight. Because as we learn in the gospel, according to Spiritism, the goods of the earth are this deposit that we utilize, but that we must use these according to the will of God. The comparison, therefore, is this unfaithful steward knew he would lose his position, and he prepared himself. We immortal spirits know we will lose possession of all material things, because we know that death comes to us all. Are we preparing ourselves? Are we preparing our spiritual lives? Are we using material resources for good? Are we multiplying opportunities for charity and service? Are we building bonds and merits that follow us beyond death? This parable is not an endorsement of worldly cleverness. It is a wake-up call to spiritual intelligence. We know that everything we have here, our bodies, our intelligences, our opportunities, the material resources, nothing truly belongs to us. As Kardec says, human beings are responsible for the use they make of temporary goods, for these have been entrusted to them as a trial. So the parable reminds us of a spiritual reality that one day the accounting will come, but not before a punishing God, but before our own awakened conscience. Symbolically, we can even think that life will ask, what did you do with the body entrusted to you? With the children under your care, with the time and opportunities you received, with the resources given for your growth, with the people placed on your path? Nothing is left out. Another interesting point is when he says, make friends with unrighteous riches. What does that mean? Unrighteous riches is a Semitic expression meaning temporary, fragile, earthly goods subject to decay. So here Jesus is teaching, use what is temporary to build what is eternal. So we can think of a practical term by using money to relieve suffering, using time to listen, to comfort someone else, using your intelligence to guide, opportunities to serve, our position to uplift, our resources to multiply good. This is how we, quote unquote, make friends. Not necessarily earthly allies, but spiritual merits, bonds of gratitude, blessings from those we help. And these friends will receive us into eternal dwellings, because it's also something that Christ talks about, the spiritual life. He also mentions that he who is faithful in little is faithful in much. What is little is the material life, because if we think of the whole life of the immortal spirit, what we have right here, right now, under our care as stewards is so little. What is much is the spiritual life. And if we are not faithful with small earthly responsibilities, how can we be trusted with greater spiritual ones? Once again, Allan Kardec, the codifier, he reinforces in the Gospel according to Spiritism by saying the true owner of the goods of the earth is God. We are these servants, stewards, caretakers, and God observes how we use the small opportunities before granting us larger missions. We can also think of the steward's cunning and our spiritual wisdom, because the unfaithful steward, he realized the time was running out. He made a plan, he acted quickly, and he prepared his future. What about us? We know that life is short, we know death is certain, but are we preparing ourselves spiritually? Because spiritual wisdom means watching over our thoughts, mastering, our impulses, renouncing the excesses, prioritizing what is essential, living with purpose, loving while there is still time. And now to the practical application of this parable in our daily lives. I brought a few things here, my dear friends. Number one, let's do a daily life inventory. So asking ourselves every evening, what did God place in my hands today, and how did I use it? Number two, maybe turn one material thing into something spiritual. So donate something with the bottom of your heart. Help someone financially if you can, but if you can't, help them with time, with your presence, with your listening. Number three, reconcile while there is still time. Just like the steward prepared his future, let's prepare ourselves emotionally and spiritually. Let's reconcile with everyone while we're still on their path. Number four, let's make a spiritual plan perhaps, because just like we plan our finances, we plan our career, let's plan our inner life as well. Let's do reading, let's do more praying, more meditation. We cannot take material wealth beyond death, but we take everything that we gave. Of course, we know that the unfaithful steward is not a moral model. He's a symbolic warning. The message, life passes quickly. Everything is temporary. We must act now. True wealth is what we transform into love. That's why Jesus invites us to be prudent, to be awake, to be wise, to be generous, responsible. Because soon we will give account, not in fear, but in growth and moral awakening. The Spirit Lacordaire in the Gospel according to Spiritism, he says that wealth is all the more dangerous the more it fascinates. So I hope that we can all be faithful stewards of what God has entrusted to us. And we reached the end of this Parable Fridays, where we talked about the unfaithful steward or the shrewd manager. May we use everything we have, my dear friends, little or much, as instruments of charity and inner growth. Like I said, this is the second to last Parable Fridays of the year. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this message resonated with you, and if it did, please share it with somebody else. Until next time, stay in peace, stay centered, and keep walking with faith. With fraternal love, your Spiritist companion.